Iron Man was released in the United States on May 2nd, 2008, and is the first movie of Phase 1 from Marvel Studios. It is beginning to build the foundation for what will be the Avengers movies. Iron Man is rated PG-13 as 126 minutes. Important characters you'll need to know before we begin are Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, played by Robert Downey Jr., Pepper Potts, played by Gwyneth Paltrow, Colonel James Rhodes, aka Rhodey, aka War Machine, played by Terrence Howard, Obadiah Stane, aka Ironmonger, played by Jeff Bridges, Agent Phil Coulson, played by Clark Gregg, reporter Christine Everhart, played by Leslie Bibb, Happy Hogan, played by director Jon Favreau, Nick Fury, played by Samuel L. Jackson, Professor Yinsen, played by Sean Tuob, Jarvis, voiced by Paul Bettany, and Howard Stark, portrayed by Gerard Sanders. It's important to note that Stark Industries and S.H.I.E.L.D. will play very important roles in the movies to come. This movie has an all-star cast featuring 2 Oscar winners and additional Academy Award nominees. Fun fact, Paul Bettany, who performs the voice of Jarvis, is married in real life to actress Jennifer Connelly, who performs the voice of Karen, the computer integrated into Spider-Man's suit in Spider-Man Homecoming. Iron Man opens in Afghanistan with Tony Stark in the back of a Hummer of a military convoy on the way to a weapons demonstration. Tony jokes with the airmen in the vehicle to loosen them up just before the convoy is ambushed, with Tony being the only one left alive. He makes a run for it to try and hide, but a bomb labeled Stark Industries lands and explodes next to him. He is then taken prisoner by a group known as the 10 Rings. We then jump back 36 hours earlier to Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, where Tony is being honored with an Apogee Award. A video is shown playing in his honor, revealing that he is the son of legendary weapons developer Howard Stark. It establishes that Tony is a genius, that he graduated at age 17 summa cum laude from MIT. It reveals that his parents, Howard and Maria Stark, died in a car accident. Then Obadiah Stane took over the company until Tony took the reins at age 21 as CEO of Stark Industries. It also celebrated that Tony has changed the face of the weapons industry with new technological advances. When the video is complete, Tony is nowhere to be found, so Obadiah accepts the award in his place, and Tony is instead found gambling in the casino. Happy Hogan is one of the bodyguards next to him. While leaving the casino, Tony is stopped and grilled by reporter Christine Everhart, but Tony has a clever response to all of her questions. We are then shown Tony Stark's mansion in Malibu, where his computer system Jarvis is integrated into all aspects of his home. We are quickly introduced to Tony's assistant Pepper Potts, who walks in and kicks out Christine Everhart, the reporter from the previous night. Downstairs, we see Tony in his garage/workplace for his exotic car collection, which will later become his lab and test area for his Iron Man suits. Tony is running late for a plane trip with Colonel James Rhodes, aka Rhodey. Rhodey is upset because he's been waiting for 4 hours for Tony, but Tony just wants him to loosen up, and soon his personal jet turns into a flying party. They soon arrive in Afghanistan for a weapons demonstration where Tony is displaying his new Jericho missile with new repulsor technology. This is where Tony says the memorable quote, "They say the best weapon is one you'll never have to fire. I respectfully disagree. I prefer the weapon that you only have to fire once." The demonstration is quickly over and Tony is once again celebrating, and we are now caught back up to the present where Tony is taken prisoner. It flashes scenes of him being operated on attached to a car battery. Shrapnel was removed from Tony's body by his cellmate, Professor Yinsen, and a battery-powered magnet was inserted into his chest to keep the rest of the shrapnel away from his heart and killing him. Characters from the 10 Rings take Tony outside to see a stockpile of Stark weapons that they want him to make into a Jericho missile. Tony and Yinsen begin building as they know their captors will only kill them anyway. Yinsen begins to follow Tony's orders without question and is surprised to find that Tony has built a miniature version of the arc reactor power generator. Tony then discloses secret plans and schematics to Yinsen, and he helps Tony surgically replace the magnet in his chest with the arc reactor that they built. After what is probably weeks of pretending to build a Jericho missile and instead building their secret plans, they are ready to carry out their escape plan. They quickly assemble the robotic suit and rig the door to explode when guards come. Since they need some time to initialize the computer program for the suit, Yinsen takes a gun from one of the bodyguards to buy time. The suit finally powers up and everything goes dark. 3 armed guards enter and Iron Man bests them all. Side note, Tom Morello, guitarist for Rage Against the Machine, is the first guard attacked by Iron Man. Tony continues to fight his way through the cave and he soon finds Yinsen on the ground dying. Tony thanks him for saving him, and Yinsen tells Tony, "Don't waste your life." Tony escapes the cave and proceeds to burn his weapons that the enemy has stockpiled with the flamethrowers. He is quickly met with heavy gunfire and turns on the jets to fly out of there. He crash lands far away in the desert and is seen walking until he is found by US helicopters. He is transported back to the United States and says that after 3 months of captivity he wants a cheeseburger and a press conference. Tony is eating Burger King when he arrives at the building for his press conference and is immediately met by Obadiah Stane. We are then introduced to Agent Phil Coulson, who is speaking with Pepper Potts, stating that he's from the Strategic Homeland Intervention Enforcement and Logistics Division. Pepper says that's quite a mouthful. "I know, we're working on it." The press conference then begins and Tony has everyone sit. He then shares that he never got to say goodbye to his father and then reveals that he will be shutting down the weapons manufacturing division of Stark Industries, causing a major stir. After the press conference, Tony and Obi discuss the miniature arc reactor that Tony has in his chest but does not fulfill Obadiah's request to study it. Back home, Tony gets Pepper to assist him with replacing the old arc reactor in his chest with a new one that he has built. He tells her that she needs to reach into the hole in his chest and reach for the copper wire and to not touch the sides, just like the game Operation. She pulls out the magnet by accident and he begins going into cardiac arrest, but they were able to switch it out and attach the new one. Pepper tells Tony, "Don't ever ask me to do anything like that again." Tony tells her, "I don't have anyone but you." Pepper asks what he wants her to do with the old arc reactor, and he tells her to destroy it. Tony then goes to Rhodey and tells him that he's working on something big and that he wants him to be a part of it. Rhodey tells him no and that he needs to get his mind right. Tony then begins plans on a new Iron Man suit with Jarvis that he calls the Mark II. Meanwhile, the 10 rings are finding the Mark I suit remnants. Tony then builds the Mark II, tests the boots first, then arm sleeves with hand repulsors with a little bit of trial and error. After both begin to work well, he exclaims, "Yeah, I can fly." He then uploads Jarvis to his suit, and a virtual screen inside the helmet helps with the computer analysis. Tony then decides to test drive his new suit outside. He also wants to test how high it'll go, until he goes so high he gets ice buildup and the suit shuts off and begins to fall. The suit powers back on moments before hitting the ground. The 10 rings are shown piecing the Mark I together to rebuild a suit. At the same time in the United States, Tony has Jarvis complete a third model, the Mark III version 2, which will be made with gold and titanium alloy and will be ready in 5 hours. Meanwhile, Tony decides to attend his 3rd annual benefit for the Firefighters Family Fund at the Disney Concert Hall. Marvel Comics legend Stan Lee is seen on the red carpet as Tony arrives. Inside, Tony has been approached by Agent Coulson, and Tony is not really paying attention when he agrees to a future meeting on the 24th at 7 p.m. at Stark Industries. He's too busy staring at Pepper Potts, and soon the two are dancing. After an awkward moment, they both decide to step outside, and Pepper almost kisses Tony. He goes back inside to get them drinks and runs into reporter Christine Everhart again. She shows him photos of a massacre in the town of Gomera, Afghanistan, including pictures of Jericho missiles and other Stark Industry weapons. Tony then uncovers that Obadiah is double-dealing, and Obi admits to filing the injunction against Tony. Tony is later watching the news of Gomera on TV while putting the finishing touches on his Mark III suit. He tested repulsors in his lab and shoots out the windows for fun and suits up in the Mark III for the first time. Tony immediately flies in the suit to Gomera. The 10 rings are terrorizing the town. When Tony arrives, he immediately takes out all the bad guys and continues to hunt down the Jericho missiles. He is then shot out of the sky, but proceeds to battle on the ground and destroys all the Jericho missiles. As he is leaving, he is detected by Air Force through satellite surveillance. James Rhodes then calls Tony, and Tony answers the phone from the suit while flying in the air and denies being in the area. US jets engage Iron Man, and Tony goes supersonic as he looks to evade missiles that have been fired at him. Tony calls Rhodey back and admits, "It's me." Tony is discovered hiding under one of the jets, and it rolls to shake him off. He then goes flying into the other jet. The pilot ejects just as the jet explodes, but the pilot's chute won't open. Iron Man is able to save the pilot by catching him and opening his chute, and a press conference is held by Colonel James Rhodes explaining that the jet explosion was the result of training exercise. Back at home, Tony is removing the new suit for the first time, and Pepper walks in and freaks out, asking, "Are those bullet holes?" If you look closely to the left, you'll see what appears to be Captain America's shield being built. In the next scene, Obadiah is meeting with the leader of the 10 rings, and it's revealed that Obadiah paid them to kill Tony. The 10 rings leader now wants to trade the recovered Iron Man suit for future Iron Soldiers, and tells Obi that Tony has perfected his design. Obi then uses a paralyzing mechanism against him while wearing earpieces for protection. Obadiah's men then execute the members of the 10 rings and steal the suit and weapons to build a new prototype right away. Later, Tony asks Pepper to go to his office at Stark Industries to hack into the mainframe to receive recent shipping manifest. He gives her a jump drive chip to get into the computer so that he can find his weapons to destroy them. Pepper doesn't want to help, but Tony tells her this is all that matters. Pepper then quits and tosses the jump drive chip back at him, but Tony convinces her to help after all. Pepper then makes her way to Tony's office and attaches the drive to his computer and begins to transfer the files from a ghost drive. She finds information about Sector 16 and finds a video from the 10 rings to Obadiah about Tony Stark. When she translates it, she finds out that Obi paid them to kill him. Obadiah all of a sudden shows up in the office, but Pepper is able to keep her mission a secret. She keeps her cool and leaves with a chip jump drive. He then sees that she downloaded files, but luckily she runs into Agent Coulson waiting for her downstairs. Obadiah then goes to check the status of his new suit and yells at the head scientist who told him that the technology doesn't exist to power the suit yet. Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a bunch of scraps, he told him. Side note, that scientist is apparently Peter Billingsley, who is Ralphie in the movie A Christmas Story. Obadiah then sneaks into Tony's house and uses a paralyzing mechanism on him so that he can steal his chest arc reactor. He also admits to ordering the hit on him and tells him that Pepper is next as he leaves. Pepper meanwhile calls Rhodey to tell him about the situation that she can't get a hold of Tony. It then shows Tony crawling to his lab to retrieve the original arc reactor he made. By then, Obadiah is now placing the arc reactor in his new suit. Rhodey manages to find Tony on the floor while Pepper is with 5 SHIELD agents going to arrest Obadiah. Tony shows Rhodey the suit and suits up, but with the old arc reactor. Tony then takes off, but with only 48% power. Rhodey sees the Mark II and says, "Next time, baby." This is foreshadowing, as Colonel James Rhodes will later become War Machine. Obadiah manages to power up the suit and attacks Pepper and the agents. Iron Man flies in and knocks Obi away as they begin to fight. Power is now at 90% after exchanging blows. At 15%, Iron Man tells Jarvis to take him to the max elevation. Obadiah in his new suit, also referred to as Ironmonger, follows Tony, who is now at 7% power. Ironmonger is able to catch up to Tony but freezes in the process, falling powerlessly toward the ground. Tony, still at max altitude, begins losing power at 2%. He crash lands on emergency backup power and begins to remove part of his suit before it powers off. Obadiah reemerges and they continue fighting. Tony tells Pepper to overload the arc reactor in the building as Ironmonger continues to break more of Tony's suit. Pepper is able to overload the arc reactor and it fries Ironmonger, causing him to fall into the reactor and blowing up part of the building. The scene ends with Tony's chest arc reactor flickering. Colonel James Rhodes holds a press conference afterwards about a robotic prototype malfunctioning and damaging Stark Industries in the arc reactor. Agent Coulson provides Tony with an alibi for the time period of the incident and asks that Tony simply read a statement that he provides him. Pepper thanks Agent Coulson and he says that they'll hear from him to call his division SHIELD. When the press conference begins, Tony begins to speak and the reporter Christine Everhart asks about the alleged bodyguard in the suit story, to which Tony Stark responds, "Truth is, I am Iron Man." After the credits, Tony is shown coming home with Jarvis malfunctioning and Samuel L. Jackson introduces himself as Nick Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D. He says, "I'm here to talk to you about the Avenger Initiative," and the movie then officially ends. Thank you guys so much for watching. I've had a wonderful time here with you today. I can't wait to see the next one. Next up is The Incredible Hulk, and we'll be doing the exact same thing. So please give us a big thumbs up, like our channel, subscribe, and we'll be seeing you next time. Bye-bye.